Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. Number one, in case I haven't talked about this before, I'm a big comic book fan, but one of the first heroes I ever fell in love with was Spider-Man. I have a VHS tape of the animated series from '94 that has Spider-Man fighting the Hobgoblin, and that was probably the first VHS I ever owned, aside from the collector's golden edition of Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. And I've watched both of those tapes over and over and over again. I've been a fan of Spider-Man basically since I was a very small toddler, like probably 2 years old and could walk around. So, I've been a fan of pretty much every single Spider-Man movie, except for some of the Tom Holland films, but that's a story for another day. The only movie I've actually ever hated from Spider-Man, thought it was too much, too bizarre, the choices within it, that kind of thing, was the 2018 precursor to this movie's review, or this review's movie. Anyway, Into the Spider-Verse, which was the first fully animated CGI Spider-Man movie. And it basically focused around Miles Morales, who was a kind of Peter Parker knockoff that was made in the Ultimate Universe, and now he's considered a big character. And I actually like Miles Morales in the comics, but personally, and I've said this over and over again with my friends and my own personal life, that movie never maintained what Miles actually is in the comics. I never thought it was a good movie. I actually think it's a bad movie, personally, because it's so boring and dull. The pacing was a mess, and so much shit happened in that film, and so many color changes and stuff, just like this movie, Across the Spider-Verse. But that movie just didn't get it right, and I've been saying that for years, since 2018. It's hard to believe it's been around for like 5 years, going on 6 years now. But I've never liked that film. I saw it one time when it hit DVD, and it gave me motion sickness. It was the only film, aside from Dragon Ball Super Broly, that physically gave me motion sickness, that actually made me dizzy watching it, made me have to take breaks while watching it because of how just fucking all over the place it was. I hated Into the Spider-Verse, and I've basically been waiting off to see this movie that I'm now going to talk about, Across the Spider-Verse, because I just felt it would be the same thing. I was amazed by how little I liked the previous film, but how much I loved this one, because it's written and, or not written and directed, but written by Chris Lord and, is it Chris Lord and Phil Miller? Something like that. The guys that did the Lego movie, who are incredible writers. They were going to do the Han Solo movie, they got fired from that. Bad choice, Disney. They're some of the most competent writers in comedy and in animation and whatever nowadays that you'd ever see in Hollywood. This movie basically has a lot of people behind the camera coming back to work on it, and let me tell you, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which came out this year in 2023, is a long-ass movie. Of course, they have a new sequel that's already coming out called Beyond the Spider-Verse. It seems like they took a few years to really make out a good plan and a good plot, and they made something incredibly wonderful that makes me even want to go back and watch Into the Spider-Verse at some point, as much as I hate that movie, because this was so phenomenal. This was absolutely incredible, dude. If you haven't seen Across the Spider-Verse, but let's say you did perhaps see Into the Spider-Verse and hated that as much as I do, you're missing out. I totally could have missed this, but it happened to show up on Netflix a couple of days ago, I guess. And I thought, I'm going to go ahead and watch this, just because I want to give it a shot. I want to be open-minded to it. The fact that it was like 2.5 hours long told me, hey, there has to be something in here. But I'm amazed, first and foremost, if any kid went to see this film and didn't get bored by it. Because there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of relationship, past stuff about different characters. It is more about talking than having superhero action scenes. But kind of like with No Way Home, if you've seen that too, obviously most people have, No Way Home has a lot of talking and dialogue and performance moments, if you want to call them that. But the actual movie was filled with so much stuff, and when you got to the action set pieces, they were wonderful. They were wonderful, man. Some of the best Spider-Man stuff ever filmed. That is the same case with Across the Spider-Verse. What do I even start with this movie? Basically, we start off following Gwen Stacy, Spider-Gwen, and she gets caught in a situation where she now has to join this kind of time dimension traveling group of people, like a particular character who is one of my favorite Spider-Man, along Spider-Man Noir, who was ruined in the previous movie. He's not even in this. Not really. There's like 1 or 2 scenes with him showing up for a second to look around the room, and that's it. But then we have Spider-Man 2099, which is named Miguel O'Hara, who is one of my favorite Spider-Men ever, like I said. Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man Noir, if you want to call him that. He's basically Peter Parker too, if you've read those stories. Those two guys, aside from the regular old 1994 animated series Peter Parker, are my favorite Spider-Man of all time. I love them. I love their comics. I love everything that they have. Noir doesn't have many comics, but you know what I mean. And I was worried about going into this film because the trailers had depicted 2099 as being an evil guy. That's not how the movie goes at all, you know? Oscar Isaac plays Spider-Man 2099, and he is wonderful in the film. He gives the best performance in the entire movie, hands down, no questions asked. But anyway, Gwen has to follow him and basically another lady who is she's Spider-Woman, but now they've made her black, and she's pregnant also. The pregnant Spider-Woman thing was a thing in the comics too, not too long ago, and it was such a stupid-ass idea. I think it was just a bad idea. But this one rides a motorcycle, which makes it even more inconvenient when these spider people ride fucking vehicles. You can web sling. Why would you do that? It's stupid. But anyway, she's annoying. She's in here. Whatever. But Spider-Gwen teams up with these people. They use a bracelet to travel amongst dimensions, and they go even further into this multiverse theory and how certain events have to happen to Spider-Man to allow him to become and be the entity called Spider-Man. Doesn't matter what their real life name is. Spider-Man will always have these certain things that have to happen to him to make him into the person he needs to be. And that is a wonderful idea and a wonderful concept they really delve into. And I loved it for that. This is such a smart movie to be a children's film. It's not something like Lego Movie written by the same people that is so kid-friendly, but has a lot of big concepts and big ideas it talks about, throws around to you as the audience. This movie does that too, but it's not as silly, if you will, as something like Lego Movie. It has some humor sprinkled throughout it. But dude, by the end of this movie, I was so tense and so overwhelmed because of so much happening in this story, in this world, what was going on with Miles, which I'll get to in a moment, that I just didn't even know what to think because there was so much happening in this. In a great way, in a good way. It's like Dark Knight in that respect. But now we follow Miles, and we kind of focus most of the film, obviously, on Miles more than Spider-Gwen. But Miles is still trying to come around to this idea of being Spider-Man a year and a half after the events of the previous movie. He's really grown into that. He has a new costume that looks much better than that shitty one he had in the previous film that I hated. He seems like a more well-rounded adult now. I think he's like 16, 17, 18, something like that in this movie. I think he said 16 or 17. Anyway, so he's basically getting to the point where he's about to graduate and whatever. He's a sophomore in school, I believe, so he'd be about 16, I guess, something like that. But he's still late for, every meeting he goes to, just like every Spider-Man will always be, basically. His parents are trying to get him more focused on what college could be like, what a future career could be like. And he's also having these struggles about his identity and lying to his parents. He kind of wants to come out and tell them who he is, why he is, what happened to him, but he just can't get there. He just physically cannot bring himself to that. But he loves his mom, he loves his dad. As Spider-Man, he talks to his dad. His dad doesn't know it's him, obviously. But they have like this Batman Gordon type of thing going on, which is kind of nice. But even more personable, more real life, talking about their personal life stuff. And I love this for that. It just really, when it gets away from that stuff and goes further into the multiverse stuff, which, by the way, I hate multiverse stories. You have to do it very well, like No Way Home, to really appeal to me. I think it's a cheap, shitty way for people to make excuses to have a bunch of different Spider-Men or a bunch of different Doctor Stranges, or whatever you want to do, like the Doctor Strange movie. You have to really do it well to pull it off. And there's a lot of movies now, especially from Marvel-themed stuff, that just can't pull it off. Again, Doctor Strange 2 was a piece of shit. An absolute piece of shit. That Wanda TV show, I'm sure is a piece of shit. I refuse to watch it. WandaVision, whatever it was called. But this was incredible. Again, if you don't even like Into the Spider-Verse, I highly recommend this. Frankly, you don't even need to see the previous film to really understand what's happening here, because there's so few ties to it aside from understanding that Miles and Gwen were really close. That's another element of the story I need to talk about too. Gwen and, I guess, Peter B. Parker, if you want to call him that, they haven't even come around to talk to Miles since the events of the first movie, which really made him feel missing out and lonely after a year and a half of not seeing them. And that was really touching because he misses them so deeply, especially Gwen, who he has a crush on. They played this all up so well. The writing for this movie is so much better. And again, more complex in a way that I don't think kids would like. That would have bored the shit out of me as a child. But I love it, man. the aesthetics, the animation style still have that kind of choppy frame rate missing thing, which I still don't like, because when I'm watching it on streaming, it always makes me think that my streaming service is acting up. No, that's the animation style, obviously, and I still don't like that style. I think it's bad. But the way they, I want to say the way they organized the colors, all the CGI, the fight scenes, all of that, the way they filmed that is so much better than in the first film. I never once had motion sickness watching this movie because of how competently, wonderfully made it is. It's a beautiful film. And it's very artistic in that respect, too, in its own unique way. Because when you go from one scene, like if you have one scene going on, for a matter of fact, and you change camera angles, sometimes the borders of doorways and the backgrounds and walls and stuff change color and painting and style, too. And that's okay, I can accept that. That's something that did not work in the first movie, the way they did it there, in my personal opinion. But when I rewatch it, of course, I'll talk about it here on the channel. Across the Spider-Verse improved everything. I mean, the performance of the main guy playing Miles Morales, I don't know the actor's name, but everybody, they improved everyone's performance. They had so many good, cute, and funny moments. They had wonderful character moments. But let me tell you, this movie is so much darker in its tone than Into the Spider-Verse. That really impressed me. There are moments, because of the beautiful music, has a lot of rap soundtrack, which is cool too, but the music in here, the actual score made for this film, feels like Blade Runner 2049, or a Blade Runner project in general. Whoever did the music for this, if they are not the one who did the music for 2049, they should be the one who does the music for the next Blade Runner projects. I don't care what we're talking about, they need to be the person, because that music added such a dark synthwave feel to this. And my wife was even in the other room hanging pictures where we just moved into our new house, and she was all down for it, man. Kept coming in the room, seeing what was happening on the TV. This is coming from a person who does not like movies that much. Came in there, just wanted to see what was going on because of how tense and dramatic the music was. That's how powerful this movie is. Across the Spider-Verse is such a masterful made movie. It's so incredible. As an animated film that has the same qualities of what the previous film had that I hated so deeply, but loved here, it showed how they took risks, and they took those things from the previous film that were risks that people apparently liked a lot more than I did, and really doubled down, but in a wonderful way, and did some incredible stuff here. I'm very impressed. I also love with the multiverse stuff. Some of the other Spider-Men I got to see in here, one in particular who was a parody of a 90s character that was hilarious, to say the least. I really enjoyed pretty much everything I saw of that character. But again, back to Spider-Man 2099. He is not the straight-up villain of this movie. There is kind of an instigation that happens with Miles getting involved in the multiverse stuff again, because there is a guy named The Spot, who I remember from the '94 animated series. The Spot is created at the end of the previous film, and I was not excited for that. He comes around, and now he's able to open portals where he can just put his hand in through here and try to steal an ATM's money or something. He's not entirely confident in his powers yet, and he learns new things about himself too. But even though he's kind of technically the main villain of this movie and the main reason all of this shit happens again, he's not really in the movie that much. Maybe 10 minutes? Maybe 10 minutes of this 2-hour-and-a-half long movie? That's pretty wild. By the way, apparently this is the longest children's animated movie ever made, according to my friend. Anthony, if you're right about that, that's wild to me. But again, this has slow patches of very good slow burn stuff that builds into something fantastic. Now mind you, I'm a massive fan of the Spider-Verse comic, the big trade paperback that I have on my digital Kindle, so I guess it's a digital paperback, whatever you want to call the thing, from, what is it, Dan Slott. I don't even like Dan Slott as a writer. Most traditional Spider-Man fans do not, especially fans from the 70s, the 80s, whatever. But let me tell you, that book was incredible, and the tributes to it in this movie were wonderful. I loved that about it. There were a lot of other Spider-Men I was hoping would show up, but there were some, even from TV history, that I think you'd really, really appreciate. Some that I wished were there, some that were there, and I'm kind of disappointed, but I'm also not at the same time. I loved this. If you have not seen, again, Across from the Spider-Verse, you've got to. It is so wonderful, especially as an adult, how smart, how clever this movie is. It has so much going for it. The performances, again, from people. Oscar Isaac, he fucking killed it as Spider-Man 2099. I don't like how they changed some of his abilities, though. In case you don't know, Spider-Man 2099 has very sensitive eyes. He has to wear sunglasses everywhere he goes. They don't do that in this movie, at least they haven't said that yet. His costume is very digital, not like in the original comics where it's just like you know, kind of like a nanobite or like a mask, whatever comic we're talking about. They changed a little bit about Spider-Man 2099, but overall his actual character, they maintained in a wonderful way. I love Miguel O'Hara and what they did with him here. It's so much more respectful than the Nicolas Cage Spider-Man Noir from the previous film that should have been like this, you know? Anyway, adaptations are adaptations, but at least they got this one perfect. They really did, in my opinion. A lot of returning cast members come back from the previous film, some for very tiny one-liners, and that's about it. Even people from the MCU sometimes show up in here, which is a nice little tribute to them, I guess, if you still respect that and love the MCU, but most people don't anymore, which is fun, because they don't deserve it. It's Disney. Alright, what else can I talk about? I'd already talked about the animation, the music, and all of that. I guess I'm basically done and ready to round this out. This is a hell of a movie. If you have not seen Across the Spider-Verse, again, you've got to. It is wonderful. Don't even bother with your fucking time on Into the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse is so fucking lame and boring and overrated. It's like Black Panther. It's the most overrated shit I've ever seen in my life. The only people who like it are the people who were told to like it and then determine that it's good because of that. No, it's genuinely shitty. I still stand by that. It's one of the worst, if not the worst, Spider-Man movies ever made. Across the Spider-Verse might be one of the best ones ever made. That's coming from somebody who doesn't like multiverse stories, who doesn't like the first movie, like I've said over and over again. Across the Spider-Verse is a hell of a movie that you've got to see if you don't believe me on it. Anyway, have you seen it? What do you think about it? I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments about it down in the comment section down below. If I had to rate Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse on a 5-star basis, I would easily give this a really high 4 out of 5 stars. I leaned very close to giving it a 5 out of 5, but I just don't think I can do it because of the slow patches in it that are good for character stuff. They never waste a minute in this movie. But I wish... number one, I want more. I can't wait for Beyond the Spider-Verse. I might even go to the theaters to see that. That'll be the first of this trilogy that I do that with. Every single one so far I've seen on DVD, but when it came out. But I'm so excited for Beyond the Spider-Verse to see how they finish the story up, especially where this ends by the end of the movie, that I just can't wait. I can't wait. I have friends who are telling me, like my friend Anthony, that this is their favorite movie of the entire year so far. I am not surprised at all. This is one hell of a quality made movie, and it deserves it. It deserves the love that it's getting so far. Anyway, I want to stick with a 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's really, really, really high, and I think it really deserves that, frankly. Across the Spider-Verse, excuse me, is it's masterful in its making. It is just one hell of a powerful film. If they happen to drop the ball with Beyond the Spider-Verse, which I don't think they will after taking 5 years off of the previous movie just to make this and then the next one in the next year or so. Dude, if they drop the ball, if they fumble that one, that will completely collapse this franchise because this one deserves so much more. And this particular movie is so intelligent and so clever that it deserves so much more. I can't wait for Beyond the Spider-Verse, like I said. Anyway, sorry for all the massive rambling. I just really had a lot of asterisks I had to throw out there, throw out some different opinions about things like Miguel O'Hara. Hope you didn't mind all that. Thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all. What are your thoughts on the movie? Put it down in the comment section down below. And once again, happy Thanksgiving. That's coming up very soon. God bless you guys. Goodbye.